इस सब को अगर हमने कंप्लीट करना है तो वो टूल है हमारे पास एजुकेशन, और हमारे इस मॉडर्न एरा में तो और भी ज़्यादा एजुकेशन का महत्व है. एंड फॉर द नेक्स्ट सेशन विच इज़ एजुकेटिंग एंड सिक्योरिंग नेक्स्ट, may I please invite our panelists, Ms. Komal Sharma Talwar, founder, TT Consultants and Director, Xlscout, Dr. Archana Mantri, Vice-Chancellor, Chitkara University, Mr. Arora, Partner, Ernst & Young. जोरदार तालियां हो जाएं. गर्मजोशी से स्वागत होना चाहिए हमारे मेहमानों का. एजुकेशन एंड सिक्योरिंग नेक्स्ट सेशन है ये, जिसमें जानेंगे कि किस तरह से बिजनेस को बढ़ावा देना है पंजाब में. हमारे किसी भी फील्ड का अगर तरक्की हो सकती है तो चाबी उसकी एजुकेशन के पास ही है. सो आई विल गिव इट अवे टू ज्योति नाउ. ज्योति, टेक इट फ्रॉम हियर. थैंक यू.
Thank you so much, Misha. Thank you so much, Komal, Archana ji, Paras, for joining us today. Komal, you were hearing all that was said before this. So there's a sea change that's happening. One can clearly see that. Businesses are changing. There's a lot of information, technology, digitization that's coming in. Along with it is this constant concern that what you have thought up, what you're trying to build, can you secure it? Can you kind of really hold on to it? Can you protect it? Can you turn it into something which will be sustainable and something which will continue to reap dividends for you? And for that, you need a lot of expertise now. Firstly, you have to figure out what you're doing. Is that something unique? Is that something new that you're building? Is there something similar that has already been done somewhere? And these are challenges which are not easy for several startups to really unravel and figure out. And that's where you come in, to make it easy for them. You kind of think up a business, you start a business. How do you kind of secure that business in terms of patents, in terms of intellectual property? How do you hold on to it? So what is it that you're seeing there, and what are the opportunities and the challenges that you're seeing there?
Yeah, so absolutely correctly said that digital transformation has been happening over a long time. In a way, if you look at Industrial Revolution, it was a different kind of a transformation. But in the last 10, 15 years, the pace at which technology is changing, it's difficult, I think, for even the academia universities to grapple with the change in course. We were talking to Archana ji that day. We ran a IP consulting business for many years, and we felt that IP is actually a big boys, a rich boys club. As you said, for startups, funding is a very, very big problem, right? And IP is mostly a very expensive proposition. It also requires years of patience, and there has to be a complete IP strategy in place, right? There are all kinds of IP. It could be a patent, trademark, copyright, it could be a trade secret. What do you secure? You have to first understand what is your product, what is the IP, and then you have to go to very expensive consultants to be able to go through the process. Now, AI is democratizing a lot of things, right? ChatGPT has almost replaced Google in a few weeks. The kind of users that they have, Google could have never thought that they'll kind of just displace them. We also kind of took advantage of the technology change, and what we really wanted to do was we wanted to impact innovation. So what we developed was a software, right? It's called Xlscout, and it's so easy to use that anyone in the audience can put in their idea in simple English language, and the system will actually tell them what is happening in their product, whether they should patent the technology or not, who can they collaborate with across the world. So from a system which was enabled only for very specialized people, whether it's a university, startup, or even an innovator, you could be an inventor, Jyoti, but there's no way you can follow the process. So AI is seeing a huge transformation in terms of there are softwares now which can democratize innovation. So IIT Chennai, for example, used to have a 4-people technology transfer department, and their innovation ideation was very low. We plugged our software into the university, and they gave access to all the students and academicians. So Mr. Kamakoti is the dean, is the director of IIT Chennai, and he's actually said it on TV, that with the help of the software, because everybody had that software, the innovation ecosystem within the university changed. So I think startups and universities have to also use technology now. Of course, you need to complement that with the human expertise in the end, but it can take care of a lot of things. And the really fascinating thing which is happening now is there's a lot of talk legally also about, can the AI invent? And can AI be considered a natural person? We've created a software now where we use ChatGPT, and we garnish large language models which are able to actually invent. So the R&D budget, for example, is $200 million globally. But if you look at the ROI from ROI, it's gone down by 70%. So it's also a software where R&D departments can brainstorm, where the machine is creating ideas for you based on your technology data sets, and the machine will be able to invent. But I think the challenge is the human has to learn to work with the AI and not think that it's surpassing them or it's replacing them. I think the beauty of the technology world is going to be when the two come together, how they're able to complement each other and create new things.
That's interesting that the human has to learn how to work with technology. And the area that you operate in, it's a niche area. One would have thought that if you really wanted to figure out if somebody else was doing what you're doing, you could probably Google it and figure it out. But then a lot of people are very concerned about even Googling, because you want to make sure that what you are putting in is not going into a server in the US. Because even the search query that you are keying in is ultimately being received by Google.
Excellent.
Now suppose I have a crazy invention that's in my mind and I type it into the search bar. So that goes into the database. So I might not want to do that. And I want a secure system of figuring out that what I want to do, is it something unique, and how should I go about securing what I thought I should be building and kind of innovating on. Is that an area that you find concerning for a lot of startups?
Absolutely.
And do you address that?
Yeah. So all the inventors who come to us, I first tell them that what are you using? And I think majority say they're using Google patents, right? If you read the terms and conditions of Google patent, it clearly states that they are saving your invention for further machine learning training. When you come to, so this is something where we differentiate from Google, right? The minute you enter an idea into our system, we don't serve anything on our servers, it's automatically flushed out. And this is the biggest concern that comes to me for any startup, inventor, even large companies. If a Mahindra or an Intel is using your software, they also want to ensure that what is confidential, because when you're thinking of an invention, it's not published, right? So it's supposed to stay with you. So there are enablers now in technology, but you have to be very conscious of that and build your software in a way where you're not saving that information. So we definitely enable that on our system.
Correct. Archana ji, universities becoming the new bedrocks of the next wave of businesses. We just had Sameer here who said that Chitkara kind of funded him in terms of Tri-Deal being funded initially. Now he's kind of taken off. So universities are where a lot of businesses are now being nurtured. They are kind of, they're ideating there. A lot of hand-holding is taking place there. Is that a new role that you find yourself kind of immersed in now, from being an educationist to literally being a startup promoter to literally kind of hand-holding businesses right when they need it the most? So is that like a role transformation for education that's happening now?
Yes, of course. But if you consider, traditionally also, education is not about imparting knowledge. It's also about creating knowledge. It's more of creation of knowledge than imparting knowledge. So if you go by the traditional definition of education also, it says that somewhere during our journey of, this cutthroat competition in the kind of the placement race, we have sort of lost that definition. So creation of knowledge has always been an objective education per se. And then how do we nurture it? That is what is the role of the educator. It has traditionally been the same, should have been throughout the journey, and should be today also. So throughout educator, whether it's a role of a teacher or an administrator or the kind of the IPR cells of the universities, all of those have to do this. Now the very nurturing of the students happens, their minds are nurtured in the classroom. And that is why at least at our university, and that's what I am also finding, because your question is about transformation of education. Globally also, nationally also, we are finding that more and more teachers need to be made aware about this role of theirs in the classrooms. And that is why we also have identified, we know that this is the kind of ecosystem should be created. So, we have been talking about AI, we have been talking about Google, we have been talking now recently of ChatGPT. So whatever possibly the teacher could impart a knowledge into the classroom is very much there on the internet. So the students will not be coming to the classes anymore. And in fact, the future is already here. They are not going to the classes for that information which some teacher is going to impart to them in the classroom. It is about inference of that knowledge, how to apply that knowledge, and obviously how they can also compete and complement the machines and AIs and chat GPTs to in fact, to, you know, their very existence, the very existence of life now in tomorrow's world is all going to be this. And this is what the teachers, the role of educators in the classroom and everywhere is going to be. This is what is the new role of teachers.
As you look at these kind of businesses that are now being incubated in universities, and you being in a university which is fairly independent in terms of redesigning its core curriculum and in terms of redesigning education, are you working backwards also to figure out how do you want to educate so that this is the natural culmination? Or is it like everybody is coming in the routine way and then maybe it's an option that they choose to kind of go into this route? Or do you actually now start working backwards to figure out what are you bringing into the university so that this is a natural culmination?
Yeah. So the kind of, you know, one, the word is entrepreneur.
Just one second. I think somebody is talking behind the stage. Can you just tell them to keep quiet?
So the one word is entrepreneur and the other one is intrapreneur. So the whole gamut of education and making people aware about innovation entrepreneurship is also how we inculcate intrapreneurial thinking into their mindset. So this can be done in two ways. The one you have said is in an indirect way. How you bring innovation, intrapreneurial thinking into the teaching and learning process itself. So you are not telling them to become entrepreneur or think entrepreneurially, but also, you know, bring that whole thing, the innovation, into everything that they do. And the second thing is, of course, giving them options somewhere down the line during the education journey, during the learning journey that they have. So both these things go hand in hand. And this is what we see in our university also, that lot of them are now doing design thinking in a very different manner. The way we teach design thinking, the way we train them on design thinking is now also being reinvented in a lot of different manner. And this is very interesting to see that how each student, cluster of students are doing their own thinking, coming up new ways of learning and adapting the technology, not only technology, but also social adaptation also is totally being redefined in the classrooms, otherwise, and the whole informal way of learning is visible now in lot more different manners.
Yeah. Can somebody find out what's happening behind the stage? Because there seems to be constant sound coming from right behind the stage. So unless it's happening in the adjoining room, then we can kind of figure out. But yeah. So Paras, I'll come to you. You have been associated with one of the big five of the world for a very long time. And you get a top-down approach of what's happening in the world of business, what's transforming there, what's going on, from the biggest to the medium enterprises, to the smallest, to the startups. What are the trends that you are seeing, especially in this region? What is it that you have been seeing, and as you've been hearing the others also, what are the things that you see transforming Biznext? What are the trends that you can clearly identify and kind of figure out?
Thanks, Jyoti. So I think there is now reverse analogy. So I think it's no longer innovation is something which is trickling top down. I think it's growing bottoms up. So I think that is one big change that we have seen. You know, whether people who have this fancy, somebody just said the startup is a term that just got coined. People have been starting businesses ever since, I think, medieval ages. I think what is happening today is people who think can people who can solve any problem today. So we have to first understand every business is reinventing itself. Partly triggered by post-COVID era today that we have. Supply chains have been impacted. You look at any business today. Let's look at an established business of, for example, Mercedes-Benz. Today, in the post-COVID scenario, Mercedes-Benz has clearly said that no inventory houses with any dealers. All sales are done directly by Mercedes-Benz. Cars are being sold online. You know, cars worth, you know, multiple lakhs and crores are customized online. So had all of us were not party to any of it. You know, if I would ask you a couple of years back, can you buy a 2 crore car online without looking and touch feel of the car? No, probably no, right? But today, why did that happen? You know, it's only by bringing best value to the customer. I think, and you know, I was reading an article and just continuing on what I was talking about Mercedes-Benz. The global CEO said he was inspired by a very small startup out of Denmark, you know, where 2 people just talked about how they can cut the chain of multiple people who are eating up into, you know, and making the life difficult for the consumer, but and impacting the brand value of that company in the longer term. So I'm saying, if you see particularly in this region, I think Punjab historically has been a very agrarian based economy. You know, we've been witness to green revolution, and that has impacted the way industrial revolution has happened here. You know, we were never a tech focused you know, place till about 10, 12, 15 years back when IT Park was established. And now, thanks to companies like Komal and so many others in this part of the world, which are pioneering, you know, and going beyond the traditional ITES domain and, you know, looking at innovating and doing, you know, wonderful work in their own domains. So historically, you know, we started as an agrarian economy, but you know, as the brain drain happened here, you know, so all Punjabis are entrepreneurs, you know, all of us either, see, we have 2 aims in life, right? Either to do on your own or go out of India and settle in Canada, right? There's no other job. No true Punjabi wants to work for somebody. That's the DNA of Punjabi. So, but if in hindsight, if you look at it, the way, you know, we were groomed, I thought that we missed the first level of growth that really came. And you know, cities like Bangalore, which were more open, the governments were more forthright, the ecosystem went there. So it's a herd approach. You know, if you are there, you are settled there, you attract talent, you attract capital, and obviously you will grow. Which I feel missed here. But historically speaking, we have had multiple beautiful companies coming out of here. Sonalika is one example. They're 3rd largest tractors based out of India. Mr. L.D. Mittal started as a combine aggregator. Today, they are, you know, behind Mahindra and Swaraj. So we have the likes of Trident, the likes of Vardhaman, the likes of Born Bread, for example, 2nd largest bread company in India today, so out of Ludhiana. So we have had beautiful examples. May not be the fancy startups that people want to see or adore to, but beautiful companies who have been set up out of this region. And I personally see now with government's focus, with you know, universities like Chitkara, with IIT Ropar, with lovely Chandigarh University, the beautiful ecosystem. What today is still missing, I feel, is a formal recognition by the so-called VC world of this region as you know, somebody who can grow and take it to the next level, because they still want to be confined to the top 7, 8 countries, cities of India. But I personally see that going away.
Yeah, Paras, I don't know, but like I have been, like if one goes looking for items on Amazon.in now, you find literally anything that you want. Absolutely. Till about 3-4 years back, you couldn't find a lot of items. You would see something and then you wouldn't find it here. You had to go to Amazon.com and then you probably wouldn't order from there. But suddenly there seems to be a profusion of items that are available, and sometimes better than what you would find on any other website in terms of what Indians are now making. So it seems as if things are taking off, as if it was an understanding of demand that needed to happen in the first place, and then the manufacturing to kind of make up for that demand, and then the ideation and the thoughts, something which Komal is also working with in terms of kind of the patents, the intellectual property that suddenly seems to be getting created in India. But like you were also pointing out, that there was this whole talk about this region having missed the bus, and something called critical mass being very important for a business area to really take off. You need that critical mass. You need a certain number of businesses, a certain number of educationists, a certain number of innovators to be in a certain area for that area to really develop. Do you feel we have been able to achieve that critical mass? Because this is a word we have been hearing for almost a decade and a half now. Critical mass needs to be achieved. So have we managed to achieve their critical mass, or is it still elusive?
Yeah, so I think if I look at, you know, a benchmark of success for any city today, so we all talk about unicorns and we talk about, you know, the amount of funding you guys have received. See, we have to understand today the benchmark of success is very different. See, for you to being successful, I think if you're profitable on unit economics, you know, you're selling us and your customer is happy, you're getting repeat orders, I think that's good enough. But unfortunately, you know, the way we measure success of any startup for that matter is by a barometer of them getting funded today. It's an unfortunate cliche, but that is the way we guys today, you know, all of us are you know, party to it. Having said that, see, there are beautiful. So I personally today, I don't feel there is critical mass is required in terms of any startup being successful today, you know, with technology being at forefront today, you know, you don't need 20 people, you know, even for starting a manufacturing company. For example, I am investing in a tea company. It's called Vadam Teas. I don't know if you guys have ever drank it. So these guys only sell teas only online. They don't have a distribution model which is available offline, and they make all kind of teas, rose teas to, you know, you think of anything, they mixed, and they don't manufacture, they outsource. Now why are they selling? Is for palate. People are also experimenting with their palate. You know, tomorrow, 2 years, 3 years back, the only 2 teas you would probably have is you know, normal black tea, Assam tea, green tea, if you're a little fancy, or Kashmiri kawa. So today, if you see, people are experimenting so much with their palate, whether it is eating, whether it is grooming, whether it is dressing, whether it is whatever. So today I feel that if your prototype or if your product is successful in a particular catchment, there is no barrier today. I also would want to mention another startup here. It's this again based out of this region. It's called Chopal. So they are a vernacular based, dialect based OTT platform like, you know, Amazon's and Netflix of the world. And you know, I was just happened to see the subscription numbers. So right now they're in 3 languages: Punjabi, Haryanvi, and Bhojpuri. They have registered a download of 25 lakh customers with 5.5 lakh paying subscribers. So which is a very, very big deal if you ask me, and 90% of the people don't know about it today. So I'm saying that, you know, if your product is right, if your customer is happy and is coming back to you, if you got the basics right, today being in a particular location is not a disadvantage. I see that people who start from this part of the world should look at it as an advantage. You have, if you have a good idea, good product, you are not competing for talent. You are not competing with 10 other people who are funded in the same building as probably in Delhi, Gurgaon or Bombay, and fighting for the talent. So those problems are not there. So look beyond, don't look at Punjab as a negative, take it as a strength. And then you will see companies, products going places. So that's my view.
Right. Komal, very quickly, like you were saying that you get a lot of data. Of course, you flush out the important bits that somebody wouldn't want you to retain. But nonetheless, you would have seen that there's also a gender change that's happening now in terms of the number of women who are kind of going into intellectual property, applying for patents and innovating really. So what is the trend that you see there in terms of women really getting confident, actually taking the plunge, innovating, the IPs, the patents? What is it that you're seeing there?
You know, World IP Day is on the 27th of April. And in fact, this year it's dedicated, actually it's called Creativity for Women. So it's actually dedicated to women this year. If you look at the numbers, honestly, it's the same numbers mostly as women entrepreneurs. It's globally pretty low. India, I believe it's about 27% of international applications that I think about 27% are women. So we are not on a very, it's not that we are doing spectacularly well. But if you look at the trend mostly post-COVID, I think one of the only industries which grew despite COVID and during COVID was innovation and IP. And India largely, if I count both men and women first, has done fairly well. There's been an increase in filing, and for the first time in the history of actually patents in India, when you look at the demarcation of patents filed by foreign applicants and domestic applicants. The first time domestic applicants are filing more than foreign applicants. So there are some good trends that we see largely in India. Of course, universities like Chitkara, Chandigarh University, Lovely, these are some of the biggest filers in this region. Previously, you only saw the IIT Madras and you saw the IIT Mumbai's who were leading in innovation. Those are all good trends, but I think the women in innovation is still a sticky question. And I think the reason that it's low is because the STEM numbers are low, right? The number of women who go into science and technology are low, and therefore the numbers obviously are going to be lower because the pipeline doesn't get built. Also, women mostly work in very organized sectors, right? I mean, especially where IP is created. And mostly when IP is created, maybe a lot of the IP rights go to the company and not the individual innovator. So maybe those numbers don't count when we look at women inventors. But I think it's very important for companies, for universities, and we are doing a lot of sessions now with the USPTO in India. We're doing one next week in Chandigarh, which is going to be focused again on women innovators. There's a lot of awareness now about bringing more women innovators, because what's going to happen is there are problems that women face. You've got to have inventions in that field, right? So if there's a healthcare issue and all your data is biased towards men, and the male innovators are not going to be as good at solving a woman healthcare problem as a woman is going to be, we are going to have a problem, a lopsided invention, which are going to be very male created. So I think the government, the private institutes, organizations like USPTO are doing their bit. I mean, I'm very proud that in our company, we have 55% women, and I'm talking about women as coders, AI experts, machine learning, NLP experts. So I think as organizations, as universities where we have leadership roles, we have to make sure that we encourage the women to come to us. We handhold them, because they're a little bit more shy when it comes to talking about inventions. And patents is a long process. It can take years for it to get granted. So there's more handholding that is required there. More awareness is required. And I think every organization again has to do its bit to get the numbers rolling. But I think the way India is going, I think the next wave is going to be focused on women and innovation.
Right.
And I hope the numbers look brighter.
Right. Archana ji, last question to you before I take a parting shot from Paris. There's been this talk for a long time that there's going to be a cluster of educational institutes working with each other to share resources so that businesses can get the edge that they want in their formative phases, or even later on, whatever kind of nudge, push, next level kind of elevation that is needed. Where do you see that kind of movement? Because, for example, there is an electron microscope in Punjab University. For example, there is a certain skill set at Chitkara University. For example, somebody can do a certain kind of a process at ICER. And suppose you need business expertise from the Indian School of Business. Then that cluster, those kind of pockets exist, but is that networking happening? Is it something that has become seamless? Because again, that's something that everybody has been trying to push for a long time. And I'm sure when that happens, it's going to be another level up. So if you could kind of give us a quick status of that.
Yeah, so I would certainly agree with you. It has not been seamless. Although, and there is no organized data also to see and to prove that it is happening or it is not happening. So mostly the kind of impressions which are being made is by individual conversations we may have. So for example, if you ask me, of course there are examples that we have been collaborating with almost each of the institutions in this region, almost all of them. And similar stories could also come out from, if you talk to other universities, other institutes. There are a lot of government schemes also, especially from DST and from Ministry of Education, where they are actually pushing and thrusting upon that clusters approach should be taken for if you have to, for example, back for a funding. So I know there are a lot of schemes in DST where if you have to back funding, extramural funding, you need to go as a cluster. So either industry academia cluster or academia cluster or startup academia cluster and so on and so forth. I also know there are a lot of UGC initiatives now are all cluster driven. So for example, the implementation of NEP, now the UGC is trusting that you make cluster submit a report. Instead of submitting the report individually, you make a cluster and then say what you are doing collaboratively. So what I'm trying to say is that the cluster approach is definitely going to be the future. That's the only way that we are going to survive. Collaboration, cooperation is the key. But unless that data figures out, we can't claim whether it is happening or not happening. That's what is my answer to your.
Paras, your parting shot. Are you excited by what you're seeing in terms of the growth trajectory of India, of Punjab, of startups, of people wanting to innovate? Or are you seeing it's an undulating kind of a movement, or are you absolutely bullish about it? How are you looking at it?
See, I'm a true Punjabi and true Indian, so I'm extremely bullish. My heart says I'm extremely bullish. And if you look at macro numbers, I think all of us have witnessed that India is growing despite whatever is happening, or in spite of whatever is happening. I think what we miss out in the India story is we don't look at how states are performing. So states like Telangana, for example, India is growing at 6.5% GDP. Telangana is growing at 12%. Punjab is again growing at 7% GDP. So I personally feel for states like Punjab, because we have to understand we are landlocked. What we need to, we have to look at a SWOT analysis of a state. We have very, very strong diaspora connect. I think which nobody, in the 75 years we are in the Amrit Mahotsav of our independence has monetized as a government. So if we are, and all of us in some shape and form are emotional people, we want to come back and contribute. So I think we have to encourage and build on what are our strengths. We can't offer lands as cheap as UP can. They have huge amount of lands, undeveloped lands, or we don't have people probably as Bihar has today in terms of. So we cannot copy those states. I think what we need to do is build our own framework and really go all out for it. And I personally feel with majority of our population being under 25-30, that applies to entire India as well as Punjab. I think the biggest asset that we have is people sitting in the room today. I think the way we are able to shape up their future is the way we are able to shape up our country. So I feel personally we should stay put in India. We should not look at harnessing opportunities overseas, countries which are stagnating. I think that trend needs to change. And I personally feel with a lot of these foreign universities setting up base in the next couple of years. We'll have King's College, Oxford University coming into India in a formal way. All of this will change because those universities will provide intellectual capital as innovation and fund ideas in a progressive way. And then we will see a different India in the next 25 years of our 100 years of celebration for post-independence.
Yeah. I think that's an exciting thought that the trends are in fact changing. One can see that that change is already coming about. But thank you so much for the very exciting thoughts, Komal, Archana.